The Korean Mafia boss chose his mistress after I protected his empire for 3 years. When I walked out, his men followed me. The night Baek Seung-hin chose his mistress, I was sitting 10 feet away holding the file that had just saved his empire. She stood up at that council table, smoothed her dress,
She is just a temporary arrangement.
in front of every man who mattered in that room. He looked down at the table and said nothing. So I closed my folder, capped my pen, and stood up. I didn't slam a door. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't perform anything. I just walked out. What happened in the next 20 minutes? What those men did when they realized who had actually been holding that empire together? That is the part of this story I need you to hear. My name is Serena Cole, and this is 3 years of my life in one sitting. I was 24 and exhausted when I started waitressing at Obsidian. Not the Obsidian on the ground floor with the $40 cocktails and the ambient lighting. The private dining floor on the 14th level, the one that had no listing, no reviews, and no prices on the menu. The kind of room that exists because powerful men need air that nobody else breathes. My cousin Denzel got me in. He worked the kitchen. His instructions to me were 3 sentences.
Keep your head down. Serve what is ordered. Repeat nothing you hear.
I followed those rules for exactly 6 weeks.
Then a man named Director Kwon sat at table 7 and quietly arranged, between the entree and the fish course, to have Sung Hyun's Eastern shipment seized by customs the following morning. Every word, clear as a phone call. He didn't think the waitress was paying attention. I passed Sung Hyun a note before dessert arrived. He read it, set it down, looked up at me. Not the way men usually look at me, not measuring, not dismissing. He looked at me the way you look at something that genuinely surprises you. Director Kwon was escorted out before the dessert plates were cleared. The shipment was rerouted, and the next morning, a contract arrived at my apartment, not as a waitress, as an embedded intelligence asset on the private floor, reporting directly to him. What I did not understand then, what took me 3 years to fully learn, is that there are 2 kinds of closeness in a man like Sung Hyun's world. There is operational closeness, where you know everything. And there is personal closeness, where he lets himself be known. He gave me the first kind completely, the second kind. He almost gave me, several times. Almost. 4 months in, I saved the
Here's
Port
the project
Incheon
file
route.
you requested.
40 million won in assets that would have been seized by customs. I had the counterintelligence file on Sung Hyun's desk by 6 in the morning. In the council meeting that afternoon, he presented the findings. The room shifted. Men who had looked through me for months straightened in their chairs. I watched him open his mouth. I saw him start to say my name. Then Chae-rin, who had arrived at the back of the room without announcement, reached forward and touched his sleeve. Just that. One touch, he closed his mouth. And then he said, "Good work from the intelligence division." The division, not Serena, not the woman who stayed up all night, reconstructing a customs manifest to protect that room. The division. I wrote it off as professionalism. Maybe he was protecting me from visibility. Maybe naming me would make me a target. I told myself a lot of things. The second almost came 6 weeks later. We were alone in his office past midnight, the only time we were ever truly alone, reviewing a security brief. The room was quiet, the building empty. He slid a document across the desk, and when I reached for it, his hand didn't move. 3 full seconds. His fingers an inch from mine on that paper. The silence between us was not professional. Then his phone rang. He stood up, answered it.
Yeah.
The moment folded itself away like it had never existed. I walked home that night with my heart doing something I did not have permission for. What I didn't know then, what I could not have known, was that Chae-rin had catalogued every one of those almost moments before I had. She had read the threat I posed to her, long before I understood I was one, and she had already started building her response. Chae-rin arrived on a Friday evening in a white dress that cost more than my rent. She was beautiful in that precise constructed way, the kind of beautiful that requires an audience to fully activate. When she walked into Obsidian, Sung Hyun's entire posture changed. Something in him went soft in a way I had never seen in any council meeting, any crisis, any operation. That was the first moment I understood she had something I didn't. Not intelligence, not loyalty. Something older and less rational than both. She noticed me the way you notice furniture.
Is this the new one?
She said to Junseo, Sungyun's head of operations, without looking at me directly.
Serena handles intelligence for the private floor.
How sweet.
She looked at me, once, slow. The kind of look that has already made its decision and is just confirming the paperwork. I told myself it didn't matter. I wasn't there to be liked. I was there to work. What I didn't know, she had already begun making quiet deposits with the council. Small comments about the waitress who reads too much into things. Gentle suggestions that someone with no real stake in the empire perhaps shouldn't be trusted with its most sensitive files. Not accusations, not confrontations, seeds. She was not going to fight me loudly. She was going to make the room ready to release me before I even knew the room had been prepared. I thought I just needed to keep proving my value. That was exactly what she was counting on. 8 months in, something about Oh Byung-soo began to feel wrong. 9 years on Sungyun's inner council, trusted, decorated. The kind of man whose name comes up in sentences like the foundation of this organization. And in 6 months of accumulated data, the pattern of his communications had developed a texture I couldn't explain away. I built the file quietly over 3 weeks. I told no one. Then I asked Junseo to arrange a specific meeting. One where Byung-soo would be present, where a single piece of operational intelligence would be introduced, accessible only to those in the room. 24 hours later, I had my confirmation. The intelligence leaked. The channel led directly to a rival network. I walked into Sang-hyun's office, unannounced, placed 12 pages in front of him. Oh Byung-soo, 9 months of active intelligence transfer to the Yeon network.
I have the confirmation, the financial routing, and a controlled leak from yesterday that closes the loop.
The room went very still. Sang-hyun didn't touch the file.
Turkey.
He looked at me. Something moved across his face I had no clean name for. He opened the file, read it, closed it, walked to the window. When he turned back, his control was costing him something visible.
How long have you been tracking this?
3 weeks.
And said nothing. I need a proof, not suspicion.
He looked at me then, fully, directly, and this was the third almost. The most dangerous one, because it wasn't ambiguous. It was a man looking at someone he trusted more than he had planned to. Serena, just my name. That was all. Then the door opened.
Am I interrupting?
Yes.
Chae-rin stepped in and read the room in under 2 seconds. Her eyes moved from him to me to the file. Something behind her expression calcified. She left without another word. Oh Byung-soo was removed within the week. The Yeon network lost their inside access. In the council debrief, Sang-hyun announced the discovery and credited the intelligence division. Not my name, not once, but for 3 days afterward, he watched me across rooms. I told myself it was professional assessment. I didn't know Chae-rin had noticed the watching too, and that from that point forward, she stopped being patient and started being fast. Let me be precise about what 3 years looked like, because I need you to understand the full weight of what was on that table when everything broke. 40 million won, Port Incheon saved Oh Byung-soo. 9 months of internal bleeding stopped before it became fatal. The logistics acquisition, a deal Seung-hyun had built toward for 18 months. I found the counteroffer 48 hours before signing. Exposed the entire setup, saved every asset he had committed. 3 separate attempts to bribe or turn me. I reported everyone. I learned the council's coded language. I built the early warning network. I trained 3 analysts from the ground up. Junseo told me once, late on a quiet evening.
There are men on this council with 15 years here who didn't have your instincts.
What I kept releasing, kept explaining away, were the moments where Sunghyun's silence about me had a cost. When Chae-rin called my department the support function, and he let it go. When a council member made a comment at dinner that landed wrong, and he redirected without correcting it.
Let's toast to our shared future.
When I walked into rooms that had been slightly cooled by the campaign running quietly against me, that I didn't yet have the full picture of. Each time I chose the work over the question. I told myself the work was the proof. What I did not understand, what I was not ready to understand, was that proof and acknowledgement are two entirely different things. And Che Rin had known that from the very first evening she walked past me. I should have seen it coming. Some part of me did. I just didn't want to know yet what it meant. The night everything ended, Sung-Yun gathered his senior circle. He stood at the head of the table. Organizational changes, new structures, new roles. And then he announced Che Rin, formal advisory position. Access to council communications, strategic planning, intelligence briefings. My intelligence briefings. The room received it warmly. Men who had moved through my work for 3 years nodded and congratulated her. She sat beside him glowing, her hand near his on the table. And in that arrangement, she was everything the room was prepared to see. I sat with my folder open, pen in hand. I watched it happen, then she spoke.
As the organization matures, we should evaluate which roles remain necessary. Some positions made sense as early solutions.
She glanced toward me, brief. But every man at that table caught the direction. We've grown beyond certain arrangements. The room went quiet. I turned and looked at Sung-Hyun. He was looking at the table. I want you to sit with that 3 years. Port Incheon. Oh, Byung-Soo. The logistics deal. The nights, all of it. Every almost moment I had quietly catalogued and held like something that would eventually mean something. He looked at the wood grain and said nothing. I closed my folder, placed my pen on top of it, stood up. "Excuse me," I said to no one and everyone, and I walked out. I did not make a scene. I will not pretend that wasn't an act of everything I had. Down the corridor, past the elevator, through the back stairwell, all the way to the street. When I pushed through the side exit, cold air hit me, and I stood with my eyes closed. He had almost said my name in a council meeting once. He had watched me across rooms. He had said Serena in his office at midnight, like it was something he was learning the weight of, and then let a door opening take it back. And tonight he had looked at the wood grain and chosen silence as his final answer. I started walking, no direction, just away. I didn't know that behind the door I had just walked through, everything was already breaking open. The moment the stairwell door shut behind me, Jun-Soo stood up. He had been building a file for 6 weeks. Not because anyone asked, because Jun-Soo catalogues anomalies, and several small inconsistencies in the intelligence pipeline had quietly assembled themselves into something he couldn't ignore. He placed a drive on the table. Before we continue. 14 months of communications between Che Rin and a contact inside the rival syndicate that had attempted the logistics acquisition. She had known about the counteroffer in advance. She had introduced the parties. She had fed them precise information about Sung-Hyun's committed assets, his most vulnerable operations, all of it drawn from files she had accessed through her position beside him. The intelligence I had built to protect the Empire, she had used as raw material to sell it. The room watched in complete silence. When it ended, Ri, the senior council member who had been indifferent to me for 3 years.
"We need to bring back Serena into this room."
Jun-Soo found me 4 blocks away. He walked up beside me and matched my pace for half a block before he said anything.
They found something.
Che Rin has been feeding intelligence to the Yeon network for over a year. I stopped.
He wants to speak with you,
For what purpose?
to apologize.
Junso, where was he when she called me a temporary arrangement?
He had no answer. Because there was none, I went back. Not for Sung-Hyun. For myself, because I needed the ending to be complete. When I walked in, Che Rin sat at the far end of the table, her composure cracked at the edges, hands too carefully folded, eyes red in a way that was performance, not grief. She was running the one move that had always worked on him before. Sung-Hyun stood when I entered. He looked like a man standing in the wreckage of a calculation that had cost him more than he'd budgeted.
Serena.
I don't need the explanation. I watched it happen in real time. I did what I had to do.
You were always going to choose the Empire. You were never going to choose me completely. I was protecting what I could.
You protected yourself by selling him to the people I spent 3 years keeping out of this room.
She looked at me then, really looked, maybe for the first time. and in her eyes I saw the thing she had never said across all those dinners and pointed comments. She had known. She had always known what those almost moments between Sung-hyun and me meant. She had read the threat I posed before I had language for it. She had been afraid of me long before I had any reason to be afraid of her, and instead of feeling vindicated, I just felt tired. Sung-hyun took a step toward me. "I failed you tonight, in front of this room. I should have." "Yes," I said simply. "You should have." The evidence of her betrayal did not undo his silence. They were two separate accountings. They did not cancel each other out. He would carry both. I only had to carry one. The understanding that I had let belonging become conditional on performance, and performed until I disappeared inside it. I turned and walked to the door. This time I went through the front entrance, across the lobby, through the glass doors, out onto the open-lit street, where the building was fully visible and nothing was private. I heard footsteps behind me, not one set, several. I turned around. Jun-soo came through the door first, stopped a few feet from me. Arms crossed, no speech. His intention needed no translation. Behind him, 3 members of the intelligence team I had trained, 2 senior operations staff. Then Ree came through the door and stood on the top step with his hands in his pockets and his eyes steady on mine. 7 people, standing in the cold on a lit public street, not following me, not defecting, just choosing where they stood and making it visible. I looked at Jun-seo.
I am not building a rival operation.
We know.
I am leaving.
We know that too.
Then why are you out here?
He was quiet for a moment.
Because you are the reason this empire is still standing. Someone in that building should have said so before tonight.
Since they didn't,
We are saying it now.
I stood on that pavement and didn't speak for a long time. I thought about 24-year-old Serena Cole in a white uniform on the 14th floor, passing a note because she heard something she wasn't supposed to and decided honesty was worth the risk. I thought about the midnight desk. The name said once in a quiet office, Serena, like it was something precious, and then immediately taken back. I thought about 7 people standing in the cold to make sure I didn't disappear without being witnessed.
go back inside. Your work is in there. Your number hasn't changed?
No.
Good.
I turned and walked. The footsteps retreated behind me, but I felt them long after the sound was gone. There is a difference between being necessary and being valued. That sentence is the entire soul of this story. You can be indispensable to someone's empire and completely invisible to their heart. You can fill a room with your sharpest thinking, your deepest loyalty, your most careful sacrifice, and still be the person they look past when claiming you publicly becomes too complicated. I was the most useful person in Baek Sung-hyun's world for 3 years. I told myself usefulness would eventually become belonging, that if I proved myself enough times, the distance between what I was to him professionally and what was to him as a human being would close on its own. It does not close on its own. It closes when someone chooses to close it. And at that table, with every man who mattered watching, he chose the wood grain over my name. Chai-rin's betrayal was real, with real damage to real people, and it did not excuse the silence. Those are 2 separate reckonings that do not cancel each other. He had to live with both. I only had to face one, that I had made my belonging conditional on performance, and kept performing until I became invisible inside the work. That was my part. I own it, not a shame. As information, recalled me 6 weeks later. Not Sung-hyun. There's a position, independent consulting. Intelligence infrastructure for a legitimate financial group. No counsel. No private flaws. Who's the client? Me. Send me the terms, I said. Sung-hyun's formal letter arrived 8 weeks after I left. Carefully worded, legally precise. Acknowledging my contributions in the language of an organization that now understood the full cost of what it had allowed to walk out its door. I read it once, filed it away. Not because it meant nothing. Because it meant exactly as much as it could, and not one word more than that. When I walked out of Obsidian for the 2nd time, I was terrified. My hands were not steady. I had no plan, but I was walking on my own terms, carrying 3 years of knowledge, skill and proof of what I was capable of, none of which disappeared because a man chose silence over my name. Real things do not stop being real because the person who benefited from them couldn't acknowledge them out loud. I built something in the wrong place, for reasons I hadn't fully examined, with my name withheld from the credit. But I built something real, and I was taking all of it with me. The men followed. Not because I commanded it, not because I asked. Because 7 people watching from a pavement in the cold decided that someone who had given that much deserved to be seen before the door closed. That was enough. That was everything. My name is Serena Cole. I protected a Korean Mafia empire for 3 years. He chose his mistress, I chose myself. And when I walked out, his men followed.